Powered by Sports Interaction.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Lyss, one of your regular hosts. I'm joined by my good friend Ed today, and we're here to talk Jets versus Devils. So, Ed, how are you doing this evening?
Uh, you know, I'm doing okay. Doing okay after watching that game. How are you doing?
Um, Probably a lot better than you. With that regards to how that game ended and played out for our teams. Ed and I were talking just super briefly before this, and we're like, we can both be self-aware and acknowledge that this win means a little bit more to my team right now than it does to his team.
hmm
But all in all, anytime that your team can pot 6 goals in a game, especially against a strong opponent, things are a lot of fun. So before we roll into things, we're going to play a quick video from our friends, and then we're going to just jump right into it. It's March Mania at Sports Interaction. NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, and so much more. It's bananas. Play Pinata Picks and Minute Madness. Exclusive games with insane odds that you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario using the QR code that you see at the bottom of my screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Wonderful. So, now that we are ready to get chatting about this game, I think we can acknowledge that the Winnipeg Jets having their top players score a couple of goals is really big for them right now. So being able to, get them on the score sheet was really fantastic, and they're trending in the right direction. Also wore their nicer jerseys today. I got my Nikolai Ehlers heritage up on the wall here because we love these jerseys. We love that player. But Ed, from the perspective of the New Jersey Devils tonight, what went wrong?
Uh, man, it's a lot just went wrong with this game tonight for the Devils. They just did not look like they were in sync with anything. And full credit to the Jets. They did a very good job of basically kind of shutting down what makes the Devils so good. They're a very fast team. They're very heavy with the transitions on the rush shots, and Winnipeg basically clogged up any sort of chances to get those shots. And even if they did get through, Connor Hellebuyck was, well, Connor Hellebuyck tonight. So also it's the end of a back-to-back, which is luckily the last one for the Devils. So that probably played into it as well. But just Jets played really good. They were playing desperate. Devils are maybe playing a little bit more loose because they're in the playoffs. Jets are not. But yeah, just rough goings here.
Totally. I noticed this game, like this Winnipeg Jets team, like any professional sports team, you often see that they'll play to their opponent. So if you're playing a really strong team, usually you can come out and have a pretty good performance. And on the other hand, if you're playing a weaker team, sometimes things look a little bit sloppier than you might want. But tonight I thought that this looked like a good hockey game. Like you mentioned that like the Devils are strong off the rush and the Jets were kind of not letting that happen as much today, which was something I noticed too. Like, this is a very fast back and forth game, but I felt like a lot of chances were being prevented and stopped right between the blue line and the top of the circles there. I felt like that transition was being shut down by both teams today. So looking at, I felt like it was a fun, dynamic game, but that shot counter was a little bit lower than I feel like it could have been based on how much controlled possession there was back and forth. But a lot of times I saw that it didn't really generate into anything, into an actual shot or an actual chance, because both teams I think were pretty good to break that up at their own blue line. So like you said, Devils are coming off of a back-to-back. That's also what the Jets had with Detroit on Friday, also a team coming into town having played the previous evening. But did you know that this is the first time that the New Jersey Devils have lost in Canada this year?
I am aware of that
Oh,
actually,
really?
because
I
Bill Spalding was making very note of it. Well, the Devils have not lost in Canada, and it would be a perfect sweep this year. And it's like, thanks, Bill. Bill decided to jinx it for us tonight, but
That's
we
so
owned the
funny.
rest of Canada, but we can't own Winnipeg, I guess.
It's so funny. It's like, yeah, same. It's giving the same vibes as like the San Jose Sharks having 2 wins in their last 16 games or whatever, and it was both were against the Winnipeg Jets. It's like, oh, the New Jersey Devils undefeated in Canada except to the known juggernaut, the Winnipeg Jets. But it is what it is, and it's a good. I'll call it an identity win, right? Like earlier on
hmm
in the season, things look a little bit different for teams. It's not as urgent. Obviously, 2 points are 2 points at any time of the year, but they just feel a little bit sweeter right now. And knowing that you can pull off a performance like that, against a team like the New Jersey Devils is super awesome and super good for a team that needs that motivation right now. So Brady's in the chat, and for those of you who are in the chat, thank you so much for being here and for watching live. Make sure you hit subscribe and like the stream while you're here. And for those of you who are listening back later tonight or tomorrow morning, I hope you had just as much fun watching this game as I did. But Brady says that it's hilarious what happens when the team does what the fans scream at them to do. So I think the Jets, to me, what I saw tonight that made them look a little bit better were similar things that I saw last game, where they just stopped galaxy braining everything. You put Nikolai Ehlers on the first power play unit and you leave him there, and things look a little bit better. You put decent players together who like playing together, who are good together, and you give them some time to gel. I not that I loved the Scheifele Connor Dubois line right out the gate, but they're creating with each other, which is great. And Ehlers likes playing with Nemestikov. Like, there's some good combinations there with those players and with those lines, and they just stop overthinking everything. And I think just kind of playing to their own strengths, which is moving that puck around and trying to generate some stronger chances and create a little bit of chaos in that front. Obviously, that Niederreiter goal is a perfect example of that, where when the puck bounces your way and you're able to get that turnover back, then make something out of it and finish those chances and play all the way through. Don't just throw one extra shot on net and then not let anything come from Vidic tonight, who I thought looked a little bit leaky. Did you notice that, or is that common, or am I just thinking things that are not real?
So, the thing I just wanted to say with what you were saying is it's crazy when you put good players in good on good lines, what they can do. So,
It's shocking.
I like Nikolai Ehlers a lot. He is a fantasy god. He's always good in fantasy hockey. So I'm glad to see that he was playing well, if it was at the cost of the Devils getting a little bit embarrassed here. But in terms of VTech, so VTech has definitely started to look a little bit shaky. I think that's coming down to the fact that this is the most he's ever played in the season. So I think he's starting to maybe feel a little bit of wear and the tear. He has a tendency, though, to start off shaky, where he'll let in a goal. He'll look not ready. And then pretty much he'll make another save. He'll make a big save, and then he's kind of locked in for the rest of the game. It kind of seems to be the trend. I think the Devils this year have 25 comeback wins. So he's let in that first goal, but then from there, the Devils have been able to come back, and he's looked really solid. Is it a little concerning going into the playoffs? Maybe a little bit, but if it's between VTech and Blackwood, I'm taking VTech 10 times out of 10 times.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, it's the kind of thing where I feel like I use this disclaimer every single time I do an episode and I start talking about goalies, because I would not say that goaltender analysis is a huge area of strength of mine, but I just did notice today that there were a couple more rebounds and looser pucks in front than I'm used to seeing from certain teams, because I always look for those and I always see them and get frustrated with them, because the Jets are terrible at managing those secondary chances. And so tonight I thought they did a better job. But the chances were definitely available for them. They didn't capitalize on everything or get a good extra shot at everything. And there are lots of times where they weren't where they were supposed to be in all those kinds of places. But I just felt like I noticed that. I was like, oh, maybe this is, me in my head, or maybe it's a real thing. But I think, like you said, Blackwood is not the solution for this team. So I think they have a decent chance with, I keep forgetting, Vitek Vanacek.
That's correct. Yes,
the alliteration.
Vitek Vanacek.
And I really like that pickup for them when they grabbed him, because he was like tossed away by another, like, Washington or something, or who?
Yeah.
And they just didn't want him, right?
Yeah, Washington had Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov, and
right.
They got rid of both of them.
Yeah, that's right.
It was crazy because everyone was thinking, well, the Devils needed a goaltending switch up. I mean, they had 7 goalies last year. John Gillies was getting regular starts for us. If you know where he is, I don't know where he is. And, people thought, well, they need to go after like Darcy Kemper, Jack Campbell, and Tom Fitzgerald basically went like, no, I'm going to get this guy down here in Washington. Worked last time they did. They got Jonas Siegenthaler for basically nothing, and Jonas Siegenthaler has turned into a very good defenseman for the Devils. So he's 2-2 with trades with Washington. So
congrats to him, because that was one thing I knew all of these players played for the Devils, but I keep forgetting how freaking good this team is. They come up and they're like, oh, like Eric Hall does this. And I was like, oh, right. And they're like, Thomas Tatar, nice shot. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this team is freaking stacked. And
Hmm.
I definitely noticed their noticeable players tonight. Like obviously Jack Hughes is pretty easy to identify when he's on the ice. He's a very, very fun to watch player.
Hmm.
And makes the others who are around him fun to watch too. Not that they can't do that on their own. He plays with great players as well, of course. But did he have a regular performance tonight, or is it just the kind of thing when, you know, I have guests on my show from out of market and they're like, wow, Connor Hellebuck played so well, and I'm like, really? That was just normal to me. But Jack Hughes, obviously it's hard when your team doesn't produce a ton on the actual score sheet, but I thought he looked like a lot of fun tonight. You know, a couple of small giveaways here and there, but that's what happens when you play exciting hockey.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much a typical game for Jack. He's constantly going to keep possession alive. He refuses to dump the puck in. He was generating chances. He took shots. Yeah, this was pretty much a typical Jack game. So yeah, he looks fun to watch. But yeah, that's what he does basically. He skates around and he just does Jack stuff.
Totally, and it's so funny. Like the Winnipeg Jets frustrate me, and they frustrate everybody, and every hockey team frustrates their fans and all that good stuff. But like, I'm at that stage of the year where it's like if the Jets go 2 days without a game, I'm like, I miss them. Like, come back. Like, hockey is so fun, and I love having fun watching hockey. And I definitely had fun in this game tonight. Obviously, seeing my players I needed to score adds to that, but it was just good, exciting hockey, like all the way through. But one of the most exciting parts to me was Morgan Barron's first ever career penalty shot when she scored on. That was hilarious to me. Morgan Barron has been a player in the Winnipeg Jets bottom six who has been very good as of late when a lot of the other players have been struggling. He's been a pretty consistent strong point for this team, whether it be on the third or the fourth line. I really liked what I've seen from him. He was on the fourth line again tonight. Not a ton of ice time or anything like that, but that penalty shot was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean it's you rarely get to see that happen. So when it does, it's always kind of fun to see what's going to happen, especially when it's a guy that maybe you don't expect. Because I have the stats up here. That was his eighth goal of the year. So like obviously he's not a prolific goal scorer for you guys,
Totally.
but he came through. I mean that was a big turning point. VTech makes that save. It's still 2-0. Devils maybe get a little bit momentum, but he scores and now it's 3-0, and Jets basically start running away with the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were a couple moments of special teams tonight. I don't know if you have the game score or anything pulled up in front of you, but I feel like both teams. I think the Jets probably had a couple more power plays, but I also the Jets had like 3 or 4 power plays, and the Devils probably had half as many or whatnot. But any thoughts on your team's special teams tonight? Take your pick, penalty killer, power play, and then we can sort of chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Devils power play has been basically kind of middle of the road, which is, it's a major improvement over last year. The one thing, I mean, it was hilarious. The Devils had 3 power plays. They score with like 14 seconds left. And I don't know if you know this, they had not been shut out yet this year. And with that goal with 14 seconds left, they keep that record alive. They have
I
gone
did
76
not
games.
know that.
There are 2 teams left in the NHL. One is the Devils, and I believe the other one is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Have
That's
not
actually
been shut out this
crazy.
year.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So
Holy.
14 seconds left. They keep the streak alive. And I mean, the power play is definitely, I think, struggling a little bit. One of the problems might be it's almost like we're too good. When I say that, it's like you have players like Jack, Bratt, and Meyer who are all about possession, generating chances, and like kind of like being the play driver. But when you put all 3 of those guys on a power play together, they're almost like they're all fighting to be in the driver's seat, basically. And then the other 2 have to figure out what their roles are. So the power play definitely looked a little bit shakier than maybe it has in the past. Definitely passes were not hitting. But they generated the one chance at the end when they were desperate. So that's the one thing that I've always liked about this Devils team this year. They keep pushing. Even when they're down like this, they kept going. Like they could have just easily said, all right, whatever, we're just going to ice it, get out of this, and just move on to the next game. Devils kept pushing. Nico gets his 31st of the year. Hughes gets his 50th. He's now up to 90 points left with 6 games. And for Devils fans out there, he needs 6 points to tie the franchise records for points in a season. So we'll see if he can maybe match that.
And he'll be breaking his own records for years to come with that, because
Hmm.
that's a fun player to watch. And it's actually really interesting that you say that, because I feel like the Jets are almost a little bit of the opposite, where they have a couple of guys who are really good role players on the power play. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a great net front guy. Kyle Connor's a great one-time shot from the side. Mark Scheifele is great in the slot, and Josh Morrissey's a great point guy. All that, whatever. So it makes it all the more frustrating when things don't work, because it's like, on paper, this should be fantastic. And the Jets power play has definitely been something that's been improving over the last little bit. And a couple people have been snarky in the chat saying, crazy what happens when you finally give your best player a proper amount of ice time, and first power play
Hmm.
unit, best player being yours truly on the wall. But I think having a couple of, actual playmakers and whatnot on a power play unit could lead to things being really confusing, and having being a little bit more chaotic, because that was a thing for a while where Nikolai Ehlers, sort of the talk about around him was that the reason he wasn't on the first power play unit was because he liked to dictate what happens on his own unit, and that's hard to do. You can't let three guys dictate what happens in the power play. You need to kind of have your guy who controls. So that was the conversation around him for a while. So if you have guys who are all kind of similar and like to make plays, if they're not all on the same page, I feel like it could just make things a little bit more chaotic and not produce as much as it should. But I thought the Jets power play tonight looked a little bit better, and I thought it was nice to have Josh Morrissey back at the point. Obviously, missing last game, they put Neil Pionk up there, and everyone knows how I feel about Neil Pionk. So it was nice to see him back there. And I didn't think they relied too heavily on him tonight, which is always nice. I struggle when teams utilize their top defender too much in the power play, just because the more you cycle the puck up top, the less of those down low, higher danger chances you're going to come up with. So the power play looked better, and just based on everything I'm seeing in the chat, from the excitement from guys like Lucas and the quotes that Noah's pulling from the post-game presser, these guys are happy with the effort they saw across the board tonight, and they feel as though things are getting better and they're peaking at the right time. So they're calling it a 60-minute effort tonight, which the Jets have been lacking in a couple areas. I didn't love all of the second period, but you said the same thing for your team, and I'll say it for mine as well, where there wasn't a lot of give up happening tonight. It was, playing all the way through. Like you said, not a ton of, lazy clears or anything like that, and it just made for a good, exciting hockey game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Devils got pretty much handled, but like it was still fun to watch. And it's you take what you can from this and learn from it. And just get back on Tuesday when we face the Penguins.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rick Bonus, it looks like, is actually saying that he didn't like that last power play. So it's good that he's kind of holding some of them accountable. And that's what I don't like is, as soon as a player that hasn't been scoring in a while or hasn't been doing something in a while does it once, everyone's like, oh, we'll stop talking about it. It's like, no. Like, there's still some trends that we want to make sure we're correcting. So I'm glad that they're still holding that power play unit a bit accountable. But I got to ask, I'm going to put you on the spot before we start talking about some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 6 Winnipeg Jets goals tonight, which one was your favorite? Which one was the most fun? You're like, oh, that's a good goal.
I'm gonna give a shout out to the most underrated U.S. forward in the game today, Mr. Kyle Connor. I love Kyle Connor. I think Kyle Connor is an amazing forward. I think he flies under the radar, maybe in a lot of regards. That goal he had was just like monster. It's just that one timer from the circle, and she just nailed it home. Was just I think that was his goal, right? Was that the goal? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was a good pass, and just I like Kyle Connor a lot. So if I had to pick one of those 6 goals, I'll take the one from the American boy.
There you go. And that was his 30th of the year. So that's his 5th 30-goal season with the Winnipeg Jets. So congrats to the boy on that one. It's really funny. Kyle Connor is such an interesting player to me, because I feel as though within the Winnipeg Jets market, he is severely overrated. But then if you look outside at literally anything else, he does still feel a little bit underrated to me. It's like, so it's super, super weird where, so it's like you'll say Kyle Connor's underrated and my brain goes, ah, but then I'm like, oh, well, actually, like, every time I see people talking about national lists of best wingers and stuff like that, he just doesn't even get some consideration in a lot of different people's areas, or he's just, yeah, like you said, severely under the radar in a couple different areas. So definitely a unique player in that regard. And I feel like someone like Blake Wheeler is kind of like the opposite, where it's like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Blake Wheeler is like an elite winger, and then we're like, No, not really, and everyone kind of knows that he's on the decline. So it's interesting that you say that about Kyle Connor. I think him scoring tonight was really good too because he's a player that's needed a little bit more, and I thought he was shooting a lot better tonight too, which is super exciting. I gotta say my favorite goal of the evening is the Pierre-Luc Dubois down on one knee one-timer to make that the 6-0 goal, I believe, and
that was 5-0.
That was 5
because the 6-1 was Ehlers.
Oh, Ehlers, yes, and that one was beautiful as well. Ehlers' second goal. Hence why I chose the jersey on the wall. It was, he was playing well, of course, but the 2-goal performance is it's awesome. But the Pierre-Luc Dubois one was great, and I also, obviously, that's my favorite player, so we can get that out of the way because that's always going to be a factor. But he also has the best goal song. His goal song is "Hey Baby," and the arena will sing it for like several minutes after it stops playing, and it gets the crowd fired up, and it's a good time. So nice to see him get a home goal for the first time in a little while.
Just for my knowledge, the Jets do custom goal songs for their players?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
It's super fun. So they have like their typical one that has no like lyrics or whatever. It's just like a do 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 whatever that plays while like the horn's going off, and they start and they do like their cheer. And they go and they all shake hands, and then they play a song. Usually, because sometimes you need a little bit of time to determine who actually scored the goal and whatnot. But yeah, they all have custom goal songs. I have a ton of opinions about goal songs because I personally don't think that the players should just pick their favorite song. Like Pierre-Luc Dubois, obviously he doesn't go home and like shuffle Spotify and his like favorite song "Hey Baby" comes on. But it's like you pick a song that you like that's fun for the crowd. If you had a goal song, Lippy, what do you think it would be?
I would be I don't know the exact name of it, but it's the one that's like, "You're the best around, no one ever's gonna keep you down." Like, it's just like something like, I would do something like that, like saying like, because I probably wouldn't score very often. So like to hear something like that, like, "Oh yeah, I'm the best, whatever." And then like I'm celebrating my first goal in like 30 games or something like that. What about you?
I've always said, and then the Winnipeg Jets called up a player that had this as their goal song. Mine would be "Gimme Gimme" by ABBA. I think that would be so fun. And I think that's Kevin Stenlund's goal song or something like that, which is super random. But just for your knowledge, a couple of ones on the Jets that I really like. And for those of you who are in the chat right now, let me know who your favorite goal song is. Adam Lowry's is "Sandstorm." Like, you know that, like, it's such a meme song, like do-do-do, do-do-do. So I think that's hilarious.
I'm a little bit of the older generation here. That was one of our songs at my prom, and I'll tell you, it went off when that song came on. just gonna leave it at that. But
that's so
it's a
funny.
great one.
It's a great tune. So that one's a lot of fun. Mark Scheifele's is "The Greatest Show" from like the Greatest Showman soundtrack, which I think is hilarious too, and it's a fun. And then Kyle Connor's is Luke Combs. There's no stopping me once I get going. I don't remember what the song is called. "One Too Many" by Luke Combs and Brooks and Dunn, which is a fun one. And then Nate Schmitz is Mambo No. 5, so that's a classic that everyone really likes. And then one of the first players to score all year with these new goal songs was Sam Gagner, who was unfortunately out for the rest of the season, but his is "Mr. Brightside." So obviously a crowd pleaser every time with that one. So a couple of good ones on the team, couple not so good ones. Logan Stanley's is "Still Dre," so that's like the best thing that Logan Stanley has ever done. That one's a ton of fun too. Don't think we've had a chance to hear that one this year, but yeah, so a lot of fun from those goal songs.
That's awesome.
Brady really likes Wheelers, which is "Hypnotize." I don't know why you get so fired up about that one, Brady. He really likes it, but and it looks like Lucas likes it too. So maybe I'm just in the minority on not loving "Hypnotize," but I don't know. It's fun. They're all really good, but so obviously talked a little bit about the game tonight, but it's always fun to have out-of-market guests come on because we can talk a little bit about sometimes I feel like every team is just so connected in so many ways. Like maybe you had a player that was traded between the two of them, or you have like a common like shared enemy and like all that good stuff. So having Lippy on here tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about Timo Meier. So obviously a lot of Jets fans know that on Game Overs in February, we'd be like, let's talk about the game, and you talk about the game for 5 minutes, and then you'd be like, oh my god, this team needs to do something at the trade deadline, and then we would just talk about the trade deadline, kind of like we're doing right now. Every time I go on the show, I'm like, oh my gosh, this team needs to figure it out because this playoff wildcard whatever is just too stressful for my liking right now. But during all those conversations about the trade deadline and trade center and all that good stuff, a lot of Winnipeg Jets fans really wanted Timo Meier. So that was the big sweepstakes of the year. Pretty much anyone who was a contender at that point, who had a little bit of cap space, was looking at that player, and obviously every fan base wanted him. But Libby, your team was the lucky one who ended up winning the sweepstakes. So tell us a little bit about what Timo Meier has done for your team since coming in at the beginning of March.
I mean, Timo has just given us another weapon on a team that already was pretty deep. Last night in Chicago, they ended up moving him down to the third line, and that was actually a pretty good move by Lindy Ruff because, as I mentioned, he's a play driver, Jack is a play driver, so like the two of them were together, but they were kind of like conflicting with each other. When we moved him down to the third line, he was doing great because he was driving that line with, I think he was with Tatar and Holla, and like he's just been an injection of energy to this team. Obviously, he has a really good shot, but the big thing too that he brings is that none of our younger guys really have is physicality. He is not afraid to go after people. He hits people, which is something the Devils do lack. I know that's the big thing people keep saying about the playoffs, like, oh, the physicality is going to go up. I'm not too worried about it, but what Timo does, it's just been an injection. And the fact is that he's under team control, so he's going to be on this team next season and probably for 7 years after that.
Yeah, that's definitely was the most exciting part about that trade, and that's why I loved it for the New Jersey Devils, a team who I love looking at, like Dom Luszczyszyn's like projections from the beginning of the year, and they go zoop, and they went straight up. Like obviously, people knew that this team was going to be good soon. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be this soon. So getting in a player like that, that's not just a regular rental to come in and be part of your team as you go forward is really exciting. And like, I love commending good hockey moves and good hockey teams. Like, it's a lot of fun. Like, and especially a team like the New Jersey Devils, where I have no like bitterness towards, because it's like, the Toronto Maple Leafs, like they could do something well, and I'm like, but it's Toronto, so I don't want to congratulate them for anything. But I like the Devils. Like, they're fun. They've made some good moves. Like, I love the Dougie Hamilton signing. I was kind of like, is that really what this team needs? I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. Like, they're definitely good enough, and he's been a great part of that team when he's been healthy. And I love a lot of the other moves that they made, like John Marino, I also adore. I thought that was a super cool trade. I know Ty Smith, a lot of Devils fans I believe, so they were kind of upset with that one. But just a lot of, like, again, some of those, like the Tatars, the Hollas, and different players like that. Yeah, I think they're a super fun team, and it was fun to watch them tonight. And even in a game where they lost by 5 goals, or it would have been 6 for the last 15 seconds, they were exciting, and it was super awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that Marino trade, a lot of fans were definitely very upset that Ty got traded because Ty and Jack were very good friends. They were roommates. And so people were like, oh my God, how could we do that to Jack? And then when they saw who we were getting back, the Devils fans that knew went, oh no, that's a total steal from Tom Fitzgerald. Like, it was an absolutely masterclass of a great trade. And I give Tom full credit too for the trade deadline, because he said before it, I don't believe in rentals. I believe in getting players that are going to be on this team long term. And his 2 moves were he got Timo Meier and Curtis Lazar, who is signed for 3 more years after this at $1 million. So he stuck to his word. But I love Tom Fitzgerald as a GM, and he has not been afraid to kind of like put his hand on the table and be like, this is what we're doing, and go for it with like the Dougie trade, the VTech trade, the Marino trade, trading Zaka. Like, he's been very smart, very calculated, and he's just done a great job with basically turning this team that needed a rebuild of a rebuild.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that makes a lot of sense. And we are running out of time on this Zoom call that I have here. So before I let you go, Lippy, I do want to just ask quickly, obviously sitting second right now in the Metropolitan Division with, if the playoffs were to start today, facing the New York Rangers in the first round. However, the gap between the Devils and the Hurricanes, barring any event tonight, I don't think the Hurricanes are playing, or if they won, I don't know. But sitting only a point behind them. What do you think the next little bit looks like for the Devils, and what are you hoping to see as the ideal first round matchup?
Ideal first round matchup is it's playoffs, so I'll take it. I don't care who we play. I mean, Devils versus Rangers is going to be exciting. That's a big rivalry. The last time we faced them was 2012, and as a Devils fan, that ended very well for us with one of the most iconic goals in franchise history, with one of the most iconic calls with Henrique It's Over from the great Doc Emmerich. And I mean, listen, if we can get first place, awesome. You get maybe an easier matchup, but I think that wouldn't be the Islanders. So maybe I don't want to face the Islanders in the first round. Like I said, Devils were not expected to be where they are. We made the playoffs, so anything at this point is just gravy for us.
Yeah, you got to beat everyone at some point. So the first round, it'll be what it'll be. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how the next little bit goes. Obviously, for Jets fans, we're going to be keeping our eye pretty close on the West because that's, the first path to getting to that Stanley Cup. So just looking at right now the out-of-town scoreboard, just as I'm saying this, it looks like Lucic just tied it up. So the Flames are still locked with the Ducks, but I know for myself, watching the West is going to be very stressful. So for pure hockey fan entertainment purposes, I will be watching the East for some really fantastic playoff hockey. So I can't wait. Just off the top of my head, looking at that Metropolitan Division, Carolina's a fun team as well, and the Rangers, I like a lot of the moves that they made, and I like that they made things a little bit more exciting for their team. So, but I'm probably pulling for the Devils just because of how freaking fun they are and how much of an, even though they've been quite dominant this season, I still consider them to be a little bit more of an underdog because they're not the typical Boston, Tampa, team and core that's been there before and has a ton of success and whatnot. So it's going to be really fun to watch. But Lippy, before I let you go, where can our listeners who are here tonight find you? What do you want to plug before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll plug my TikTok. So basically, if you want to follow me, I make TikToks about whatever I want, mainly about Devils and hockey. It's lippy.27. And I'm on Instagram, lippyhockey27 as well. So if you want to give me a follow, go right ahead. I make stuff about Devils, beer league, being a parent, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you so much. Lippy and I have a very exciting group chat that we're part of about hockey, TikTok, and fantasy hockey and all that good stuff. So that's where we know each other from, and we'll definitely be chatting more when our teams run into each other in the Stanley Cup final next month. Yep, so
absolutely. I'll
have
see
a
you
fantastic rest of your evening. For everyone who's in the chat right now, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out, and we will see you on Wednesday when the Jets do face off against, lo and behold, the Calgary Flames. So that's going to be a ton of fun. A couple of fun wagers coming up with Peter and Audie, the Game Over Calgary hosts, and going to get some fun, camaraderie going on there between our teams who both desperately need every win that they can eke out for the rest of the season. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and hopefully your coffee is the perfect temperature tomorrow and that your commute to work is seamless and your Monday is a little bit easier. So take care, everyone, and have a wonderful night.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.